Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Tuesday, November 26th, 2019 City Council meeting. And we'll start out with the roll call.
Bartlett.
Here.
Boersma.
Here.
Caravello.
Here.
Doom.
Here.
Hiley.
Here.
Hirsch.
Here.
Jensen.
Here.
Lagaki.
Here.
Mayeski. Reeves.
Here.
Riley.
Here.
Schumacher.
Here.
Mayeski is absent and excused.
Thank you very much. Are there any communications tonight from council members? Alderperson Schumacher.
I'd like to add one. So during the fall, I had the opportunity to indulge in the Chief's Citizen Police Academy. Really, if anybody has any opportunity to go and do this, it's very enlightening. You will be amazed at the type of things that the officers deal with on a daily basis, and I really can't recommend it enough. So fall time, it is a commitment, but it's well worth it. Thanks, Chief, for putting that on.
You're welcome, and we do advertise that on our webpage and Facebook, and we are considering having a spring session in 2020 just to kind of mix it up a little bit. Usually it's held in the fall. So.
And I agree. I went through it last year as well, so it's a good program, very educational. Any other communications from council members? Okay, hearing none. We do have a presentation tonight from Visitor Services for the 2020 budget, and Callie's here tonight. Good evening.
Good evening. I am Callie LaPointe, the Events and Visitor Services Manager at the Stoughton Chamber of Commerce. The Visitor Services Department within the Chamber of Commerce is funded by the hotel tax that Stoughton authorized in 2004. Although it is referred to as a hotel tax, it is the visitors that pay the tax and the hotels collect it and pay it to the city. This is a common practice in communities across Wisconsin as a way to fund tourism marketing. The state's regulations for this practice require a tourism commission to oversee the use of these funds. In accordance with these regulations, our tourism commission consists of representatives from a hotel, an attraction, a retail establishment, a mayoral appointee, and at-large members. Additionally, the state requires annual reporting of the previous year's expenditures, which is done by the city, but we provide all the data needed. I have created a recap of some of my larger advertising and marketing expenses for 2019. There will be similar ventures for 2020. The 2019 proposed budget that I presented last year included a $12,000 carryover, an income of $56,000 from the room tax, operational expenses to about $43,000, of which $28,750 was for marketing and advertising, bringing total expenses to $60,000. With a net income of negative $4,000, but with that $12,000 carryover, a projected net balance of $7,900. In Q1 marketing and advertising, I have a banner up at the Beloit Travel Center, which is shown on the left-hand side. This is a large windowscape, and Beloit is a very well-traveled travel center. I printed off dining guides for visiting teams at the Athletic Center. They host 2 weekends of girls basketball tournaments and a weekend of softball tournaments. And my largest expense for a cumulative of 4 years is our Discover Wisconsin episode, which will be airing in spring of 2020. Some of my Q2 marketing and advertising was an ad in the Beloit Travel Guide and an ad in the Viking magazine, which is a Sons of Norway publication promoting our Centennial Festival. In Q3, I teamed up with some of the some of the businesses in town to do a cooperative radio buy for Labor Day. This was to promote Stoughton as a destination and getting those Labor Day travelers to come to Stoughton. I also did a group tour ad. Group Tour is a publication promoting group tours, and this is a shared ad with Liz Risa. I also ventured into Brava magazine, which is a Madison-based magazine, to promote starting the holiday shopping here in their October travel section. Some more quarter 3 marketing and advertising was an ad in the Day Trippers. This is actually a fall and a spring publication. And then our ad in the front page of the Stoughton Opera House promoting all the events that we have year-round. And in quarter 4, I have purchased a small ad on a pint space pint cup, similar to what you would see at Viking Brew Pub or Deeks or BBG's, and this is in Janesville, again, just to promote Stoughton as a destination to come shop for a day. And the biggest one for this quarter was our radio campaign and the Home for the Holidays. We are one of 2 sponsors on the Mix 105 holiday programming, and I was able to partner with 7 businesses here in Stoughton to be featured there. And then my large print copy is a new visitor map. We will have these at our Shop Small tent this Saturday, but it promotes the retail and the restaurants both downtown and throughout the city. Some online marketing things that I'm doing is Instagram. If you don't follow it, it's visit_Stoughton. And on Facebook. So I've been doing some paid advertising on Facebook to promote shopping in Stoughton. I also have a website that we launched last year. Jamin, if you wouldn't mind, please clicking that link.
This one?
Yep. Okay, he's getting the there. If you haven't visited it yet, it is visitstoughton.com. And on the right-hand side is kind of a recap of what that is. I also have online guides for people that would like to have weddings in town, promoting the businesses of where they could have all the things for weddings, locations, hotels, catering, as well as sports. So promoting the city fields, the athletic center, again, and the hotels and the caterers. So my proposed budget to my commission that has been approved is carrying over, oh, excuse me, this is a recap of the 2019 one. So we can go to the next one. Yep. So 2019 and 2020 comparable budget. On the left is the recap of what I presented last year, excuse me, and a $12,000 carryover to bring a net balance for this year at $7,900. Right now, my budget is looking at again being able to carry over $12,000 into year 2020, and lowering the receipt of income from the hotel tax down to $54,000 just based on trends for what I'm seeing for this year, and keeping with about the same operational expenses. We can look at a projected net balance of $6,799 for 2020. So the Stoughton Tourism Commission has approved the budget that you would see in your packet. This is provided for your information, and you do not need to take any action. Does anyone have any questions about the 2020 Visitor Services budget?
I don't know if it's necessarily actually about the budget, but you did mention Shop Small Saturday, a tent that you will have located somewhere, and since Shop Small Saturday is this Saturday,
Correct.
what are the hours of Shop Small Saturday, and where will that tent be located?
So the tent will be in the city lot, the former McFarland State Bank lot where we have been, and it's promoted by the chamber. The tent will be up from 10 to 2, and we'll be handing out bags for visitors. We'll also have coffee and hot cocoa. Business hours will all vary depending on the individual businesses. Yes.
Callie, what do you think the impact of the True Hotel, once that one is finished, will have on your budget ability?
Oh, it's exciting. Yes, another hotel coming in will only give us more marketing options, and being able to explore different options. Yet for 2020, I can open that up even larger and see some bigger projects that have kind of been on my sideline that I haven't been able to commit to yet.
Okay.
The money from the hotel tax went down. Those stays have been going way down. Is that a steep trend, or do you know what the reasons might be for that? Because we've been having more events every year.
Certainly. For the 2019 budget, I did increase that a little bit because 2018 room tax was up. The 2019 is pretty similar to what we saw in 2017. So.
Any other questions, or maybe if you want to just take a second and expand a little bit more on the differences between visitor services and the chamber, which is the other hat that you wear?
Certainly, because you probably see me here for both. So the Visitor Services Department, again, is funded by the hotel tax, and that is in charge of promoting room stays, marketing Stoughton as a destination for weekends or overnight, and we can expand more on tournaments, weddings, conferences, things that get people to the town for multiple days. My role with the chamber as events manager is planning Cinema and Coffee Break Festival. So yes, 2 hats, but different funding streams.
Yes, thank you for presenting tonight. I was just wondering, for the new hotel, just breaking ground, do they know, do you formally approach them and tell them what their obligations going to be for?
Yes, we have partnered with them already. The management company actually runs the hotel in Oregon, and they are a chamber member. They invited us to their groundbreaking, and we have some collaborative event or collaboration that we will be working on now as construction starts.
And they know the obligation then for?
With the room tax, correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great Thanksgiving, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, we have minutes and reports are in the packet. And next item would be public comment. We have one person signed up. David, you can come on up and just state your name and your address for the record. And welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me tonight. My name is David Bear. I live at 2616 Happy Valley Road in Sun Prairie. I'm a member of SWAC LLC. My partner and I purchased the Stoughton Wellness Center building today. The reason to speak with you today is about the impending roundabout and the effect that it has on access to the property. We're very concerned that the pork chop that's being proposed, that's the DOT's terminology for that effective impediment to access Silverado going to the north of the roundabout, will prevent significant hindrance to the visitors of the SWAC. There has, and I distributed this at the Public Works Commission meeting last week, there was a plan created in 2017 which allowed ingress and egress direct from Highway 51. I'm not sure why that wasn't acted on, but we would really sincerely appreciate your support in trying to get this to be acted on. The research that I have done shows that the Dvorak plat precludes access to what is known as, I guess I would call it the city lot, right? That's along 51 and in front of the SWAC, as well as our land to the west of that. But it does not preclude access to the east of that, and that is where that ingress and egress is noted. So I believe that the state of Wisconsin would have the ability to allow ingress and egress to that site if they so chose. I am working with the DOT, and as recent as this afternoon, I did invite them to this meeting tonight. They thanked me for the invitation, said they couldn't make it, but they are looking at this. And I think that if we could get the city of Stoughton to formally request that they look at this, it will help our cause immensely. I did speak to several parties about this. Everyone that I've talked to has broad support for this change. I think just to look at it really in an open and critical eye, it's very easy to see that the proposed roundabout is not going to be friendly to this building.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And would anyone else wish to speak to the council tonight? Seeing none, we'll go into the consent agenda. There's 4 items in the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion by Jensen.
Second.
Second by Hiley. Would anybody like anything removed from the consent agenda? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. Now we're going to bounce around a little bit because there's people that are going to be here waiting for us to take action on some items. So I'm going to go to number 7, which is R-179 of 2019, and this comes from Public Safety, Alderperson Jensen.
Thank you, Your Honor. Resolution 179, 2019, approving designated snowmobile route in the city right-of-way, and I would so move.
Second.
Second
by Alderperson Hiley.
This
Alderperson
is-
Jensen?
Yeah, this is something that comes to us pretty much every year. It's just simply going to allow the snowmobiles to get to the gas stations on the north side of town and fill up their sleds. According to the chief, there hasn't been any issues. See no reason to deny this. Any other questions?
Alderperson Boersma?
Yeah, I highly support this resolution. I think it can potentially help, especially like the gas station, as Alder Jensen just mentioned, and also some other business in the city. I think it's the concern is, is always whether there's enough snow, and to create any problems with with the land or the earth. But I haven't seen any problems with that in the past. I think the snowmobile clubs that run this are really equipped by making good decisions on whether or not snowmobiles are going around the city or other places as well. So I think it's a highly organized group, and I would highly support this resolution.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. Hopefully we get some snow this year. We're going to go down to item number 12, which is our 182 of 2019. So this and the next item are both from Planning Commission. Alderperson Caravello.
This is R 182 of 2019, approving a conditional use permit request by Natalie Richter for Pumpkin Patch Daycare and Nursery School at 1940 Jackson Street. And Plan Commission recommends approval unanimously, and I so move.
Second. Second by President Majewski. Alderperson Caravello.
This is in relation to the next item that we're going to be tackling as well, which is the certified survey map for this, but this is a proposed conditional use, which is in keeping with all our rules and ordinances, and actually I think is a good addition to this neighborhood and a fine use of property that they're proposing to have their daycare and nursery school in.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? Alderperson Hirsch.
I was trying to look at the pictures or their design. Is that kind of in line with the neighborhood? I mean, I see that one part of it, the slats go vertical, and the next side, they go horizontal, and is that normal? And I'm just making sure it doesn't look like a pole barn, but it actually has some nice structure for that neighborhood. I mean, I can't tell from these drawings what it actually will look like, so any assistance would be great.
Planning Director Shield.
I'd suggest it's very similar in architectural style as the existing building that's there now.
Okay.
There's a vacant building that's been vacant for a number of years there. It'll be a single-story ranch type facility or single-story structure,
Okay.
Which is the current building that's located there now. They'll actually be removing the existing building from that foundation and utilizing a major portion of that existing foundation, or reusing a major portion of that, and constructing a new facility on most of the existing foundation.
Okay, so the look and the feel of it will look basically the same.
Again, we don't have an architectural review authority. But certainly I believe it's consistent with the neighborhood, the type of siding and materials.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. Next item is R-183, Alderperson Caravello.
And this is R 183 of 2019, approving a certified survey map for property located at 1940 Jackson Street, Stoughton, Wisconsin, and Planning Commission approved unanimously 6-0. And this is the certified survey map for the Pumpkin Patch Daycare and Nursery School that we just approved.
All right, and that's a motion.
And I so move.
All right, and is there a second? Second by President Mayeski. Anything else to add to this one? Okay,
Again, I think it's a fine use of that property and removes something that was previously disused, so.
okay. Alderperson Boersma.
Yeah, Phil, you know this, I think they're currently in the old Harris School, is that right?
They are. That is where
You
they're
know, are they
currently
gonna be,
operating
they're
on.
gonna be vacating that then and moving? And what's the timeline again on that, do you know?
Quickly.
Come on up. We have 3 people here from Pumpkin Patch, and you can come on up to the microphone. If you'd like, you can introduce yourself, so Holly has
Scott
it.
Foley, Ultimate Construction, the contractor for the Pumpkin Patch. So the time frame is they close tomorrow on the property. We're going to let Habitat go through the property and take whatever they need, and then the building will come down before the first of the year. And we will start construction soon after we get the state permits and the city permits.
So sometime next year then?
They need to be open by August 1st. A very quick timeline to get this project done.
Both my kids went to Pumpkin Patch a long time ago. I love the organization.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments or anything you'd like to add, or?
Your question on the siding, it will be vinyl vertical and horizontal sidings. It'll
Okay,
match the community.
okay.
Very extensive landscape plan, the playground's in the back of the building with the vinyl fence slats in it.
Okay.
All new paving to create the stormwater management plan. Aprons will come out, all the paving comes on out. We'll take it right down to the existing slab and then add on to that existing slab to make it the square footage they need for the children.
No, I think it's great, because I've been driving past that building for a long time going, I wish somebody would refurbish it. So thank you for doing that, and it's a great location with, in that neighborhood, so that's great.
We have big swings and slides for me if I go over there.
That's why we're taking that facility down.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Thank you.
opposed? None opposed? Thank you very much. All right, is anybody else here that I missed? Okay. We can go back to item number 8 then. The next 3 items are coming from Public Safety. Resolution 180, Alderperson Jensen.
Thank you, Your Honor. Resolution 180, 2019, authorizing and directing proper city officials to approve an operator license for Aaron Henderson, and I would so move.
Second?
Second by Alderperson Bartlett. Alderperson Jensen.
Okay, yeah, this is, well, this was a tough case. I wish she was here. Is she here tonight?
No.
No.
She did not show up. Okay. Well,
That's not good.
we spent a lot of time on this. We spent probably 40 minutes on this. We felt, the committee felt, and I don't want to speak for them, if they want to say something, I'd be happy to have them. But we felt that she was making the proper moves, that she had straightened herself out and was worthy of a second chance here, and so that's why we approved this.
Okay. Alderperson Hirsch.
I was just wondering if I think we've done other things in previous years where we gave them a probationary period. Did you guys discuss that in your?
This is a 1 year, right?
Yes.
It is a 1 year, so that's the probationary period, yep.
Well, she was here.
She was at our meeting, but she is not here tonight. I wish she was.
Okay.
Alderperson Riley.
Thank you, Mayor. Holly, did you issue whatever license it is in the interim on this one, or were you allowed to, given our
Yes,
action?
we issued the provisional one.
Thank you, provisional, there we go. Thanks. I'll speak to this briefly. I'm disappointed she's not here as well. However, this was a situation where there is a bit of a tortured history for this person. She had convictions relating around a drug addiction issue back in 2012. There's no indication that she has not successfully maintained sobriety since about that time. Also, she had done so well in the drug diversion program at Dane County that Judge Colas, who I think is an excellent judge, recommended her for lecturing or talking to other persons who are going through the same struggle and who are members of that diversion program. So she has also spent time trying to help others who are going through what she did, and I suppose continues to a degree, but again, no indication that she's not has not been very successful in her recovery and her maintaining sobriety. The other funky thing, the apartment thing or whatever, I read that. It just seemed really odd. Her version is that she went into, I think, an apartment that she had rented to retrieve some personal property that was hers, and she got into trouble for that. I've been involved in practicing law long enough to know that people get kicked in the teeth for things they shouldn't. I don't know that that's the case here, but it certainly happens. So I didn't look at that as terribly problematic. So I thought on balance, she was very sincere. She was very extensive in her answers to our questions, and I think honest. I think on balance that those are some of the reasons at least I felt it should be approved, and apparently the other members of the committee agreed with that as well.
Any other questions or comments? And usually what happens in a case like this is if there's something in somebody's past that's relevant to the license being issued, I think that's what we're ruling on, and you can correct me if I'm going the wrong direction on this, Attorney Dragney. So really, you said there was some recent law changes or emphasis on whether or not the violations are relevant to getting a liquor license, an operator's license. Maybe you could speak to that briefly.
So off the cuff here, the basic lay of the land, and there have been some changes. It's always been the case, I believe, that if a license were to be denied on the basis of an arrest or conviction record, things get a little complicated. First of all, if it's an arrest, it has to be a pending criminal charge. It can't be an arrest that is no longer the subject of a pending criminal charge. But assuming it's a pending criminal charge or a conviction, then there needs to be a substantial relationship between that circumstance and the licensed activity. So that's one element that's always been the case, and that's been a little difficult to apply in some cases. The more recent changes in the law have, and I don't have all of this in front of me now, but have made things more complex with respect to what can be considered. And I think there's also now a requirement that someone be given an opportunity to demonstrate that they have successfully kind of rehabilitated themselves. If you're looking at a past record before you make a decision. So that's kind of in general what the lay of the land is these days. These are tricky issues to work your way through for those reasons.
So I guess what I am suggesting is maybe the committee considers having Attorney Dragney either come to a committee or provide some information that might be helpful for future cases. Alderperson Legacki.
In light of that, given what I do when I'm not an alderperson, I ask some pertinent questions at our meeting. And I did vote with this, but I did have a few reservations, but I ended up voting for this because even though what it appears to be charges from 2012, 7 years ago, going on 8 soon, forgery and uttering and misappropriate use of IDs were the ones that I saw related to her opiate addiction, which she openly talked about. The fact that she has maintained her sobriety and we have no reason to be that in question, and given the environment and the availability of substances today, I really think that it's in her best interest, and I too am disappointed that you're not here, because I think you would be able to see for yourself that I think this is a woman who's deserving of a 1-year license, and finding all kinds of ways to try to put her time and her energy and her gifts in a positive direction.
Thank you. Alderperson Boersma?
My concern is that we have to make a determination on this, her safety, safety of the public. As you're aware, I'm a social worker, and always ask that question of, have you had any treatment for your addiction in the past, and are you, what would you do if you do start back at an addiction or whatever? Would you be willing to go for counseling as kind of a preventative thing? So I would also echo the fact that it would be nice if people could show to our group, because we have to make a determination on it, and to be able to ask relevant questions related to that, because I think that would go a long way to clear up my concerns for this person. So.
Okay, thank you. I have Alderperson Jensen and then Lagaki.
Yeah, we were very fortunate to have Jean in this meeting because she asked those very questions. So I'll let her speak to that.
I asked how she maintains her sobriety, and we discussed a little bit of her experiences with the Dane County and successful completion of the Dane County Drug Diversion Program. I feel that she spoke to her support system and people who remain in her life and are aware of these things, and that want to see her as a contributing person. I felt those things were authentic. But she answered all of our very clear questions and responded to comments and questions appropriately. I again feel that this is a person who has found other ways to act than that of addictive behaviors.
Thank you.
So she went through a diversion program, but was therapy a component of that diversion program?
I didn't ask her if she had done therapy, but she is an artist, and she spoke to other complementary ways. I chose not to comment about encouraging NA and or more traditional means. If she were here, we could ask her that. But given that she produces art, she's organizing programs, she spoke about positive, supportive relationships. I chose not to go in those particular directions and ask her specifically what drug therapy programs she may have done. I felt confident in what she presented.
Alderperson Riley, and then we'll finish this one up.
Okay, all right then.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, here's the thing. The jail diversion program requires treatment, and so she has gone through treatment. There were discussions with respect to also, I believe, her having been involved in AA, and some encouragement from some members of the committee that should she find herself in any way needing that she should return to that, and she indicated that she would. So hopefully that answers some of the concerns expressed by the councilperson. Thanks.
It does allay my fears a bit, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Sounds like you guys did a really thorough job, so thanks for doing that. All right. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. That carries. R181 of 2019. Alderperson Jensen.
Thank you, Your Honor. R181, 2019, authorizing and directing the proper city officials to suspend ordinance 70-186 downtown 2-hour parking regulations from November 29th, 2019 to January 1st of 2020, and I so move.
Second.
Second by Alderperson Hirsch.
Yeah, this was a request that came to us from former Alder Denise Transick to try and spread some goodwill during the Christmas holiday.
Okay, thank you. Alderperson Reeves.
Just a correction, in the top it says 29th, and the last line it says November 28th, so just to clarify whichever date it is, so they match up.
It was, let me look back here.
29th.
I believe it was the 29th.
So whichever y'all agreed on, just.
It was the day after Thanksgiving.
It was
so
the
it'd be
day
the
after
29th.
Thanksgiving, so it'd be the 29th. It should be the 29th.
The 29th, Black
Although,
Friday?
yeah, 28th, I guess nothing much
Yep.
is open. but-
Okay. All right, Alderperson Hirsch.
I was just wondering how suspending this affects parking down the town if we have like a snow event, if,
Doesn't.
so people still have to vacate those, so that will be clear somehow on the signs or whatever.
The signs will not change. They will still be there. It'll just be a moratorium by the police department.
The enforcement only goes till what time?
5 o'clock. Yeah.
5 o'clock anyway.
And this is only for the 2-hour parking. All the other signage and everything else and all the other regulations still apply. This only goes to the 2-hour parking time limit.
Okay, so how will visitors know that it's a moratorium?
They won't get a ticket.
They won't get a ticket.
We decided to be quiet about it.
Okay. I just didn't know if we were like announcing it or, you know.
It was decided it would be best not to advertise it, to just not do it.
Okay. It's a covert,
Yeah, cool.
happy holidays.
Now, Tim wanted to do something different.
Yeah, Tim wanted
But I
to put
don't, I'm
calling
sure you
cards.
don't
Save
want to
that
hear
for
it.
another night.
All
Save that
right.
for another time.
You'd have enjoyed it.
All right, any other? Alderperson Caravello.
I support this. There's been, with being on the downtown revitalization RDA subcommittee, this has come up a couple of different times about whether our 2-hour parking downtown is really something that we should continue with or whether we should address that. So I think going with this little bit of holiday happiness for people not getting a little yellow gift from the city on their car would be a nice thing to just step into looking at our downtown parking ordinance. So I endorse this.
Okay, thank you. All right, anything else? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. The next two items are first readings from Public Safety. Alderperson Jensen.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ordinance 25, 2019, amending Chapter 50-6, subsection B of the City of Stoughton Municipal Code by adding Nordic Ridge Park to the list of city parks where alcohol is allowed by permit. And this is the first reading.
Did this one go through parks as well?
Yes,
Okay.
it did. It's just that Nordic Ridge Park is a new park, and we're just updating the ordinance to include this new park.
Okay, thank you. If anybody has any questions about this or the next one, feel free to email the committee chair before the next meeting. Alderperson Boersma.
So this is our park, and it's probably for adults and kids, and I think that that's not a good precedent, so I'll be voting no.
Okay. All right, and this will be at the next meeting. Alderperson Hiley.
Just to clarify that this is not a precedent, there are several other parks where permitted alcohol is already allowed.
It's a continuing precedent.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. We'll see that one in 2 weeks. The next one comes from Planning Commission. Alderperson Caravello.
This is,
Ordinance 26.
yes, ordinance 26, 2019, an ordinance providing for the direct annexation of a portion of the town of Dunn to the city of Stoughton, Dane County, Wisconsin. Plan Commission recommends approval on a vote of 5-2.
Okay.
And
That's first reading.
this is the first reading.
Yep.
That's right. Sorry.
Alderperson Boersma?
I'm aware that there was some concern by Dunn about this, and we can talk about it in the future, but I know that there was.
And we met with the town of Dunn, and we talked about this, and I think they understand that this is something that was in our comprehensive plan, and that the landowner approached the city about the annexation. And, you know, I don't know if the town ever likes to see any land annexed, but they certainly understand the desire to do so as far as its proximity and its consistency with our comp plan. Anything else we should add, Phil or Director Shield?
I might just add to Alder Boersma's comment, and the Township of Dunn is still objects to the annexation, right? Did they actually change their initial?
They sent a letter to the Department of Administration, which they typically do. We had our meeting, and they didn't say yes, you know, but they certainly understood, and I think the takeaway with the meeting is we want to continue to have conversations about land use and other topics going forward, and I thought we had a very positive conversation, and you know, we want to build on our relationship with all the townships. I know that was clear as mud, but
No, it made sense to me.
Hiley.
So this weird cutout shape property in this request, has anyone reached out to that property owner?
We have not.
I believe that the applicant for the annexation has had conversations with the property owner. Anything else? Otherwise, this one will be back in 2 weeks, or next meeting, I should say. All right, we'll continue to move on. Number 14 is coming from Plan Commission, Resolution 184. Alderperson Caravello.
Resolution R 184, 2019, approving a new housing fee report and housing affordability report for the city of Stoughton, Wisconsin. Planning Commission recommends approval unanimously 7-0.
That's a motion.
And I so move.
Second.
Second by Alderperson Riley. Anything you want to add, or should we turn it over to Planning Director Shield?
I think we should turn this one over to Planning Director Shield, if that's okay.
Certainly. These are new reports that are required for the first time this year. There is actually a page that will be updated within both of these on the last day of the year that will summarize the totals for the 2019 fees that were collected. So on page 10 of the first document, there's a table that lists the 2019 fees collected. We'll make that change at the end of the year. They issue it at the end on December 31st and submit this to our website, as well as provide each of you a copy with the updated information at that time.
Alderperson Hirsch.
Just to clarify, this is what we collected in 2019, or is this what, going forward, what people can expect to pay?
It's a history. It's providing you what we collected in 2019 as far as fees. And the quotient is you have to divide that by the number of dwelling units that were constructed in the same year,
Okay.
which is a number that really doesn't mean anything other than it's a requirement of the state law.
I guess I was reading that this was a document for developers to look at what all their fees are, and I know that the parks impact, we're doing a study to assess whether or not our impact fees are the right amount. So that would then show up next year in a report, or?
So this also shows the fees that we charge.
Okay.
What I was just referring to was the culmination of the table for all the fees that we did collect, but it does show all the fees that we do charge related to residential development.
So if this is going next year, and yet I don't think our study is complete that we paid for the impact fees, that we'd like to have done as soon as possible. How does that fold into this document?
This has to be done annually, so this would be updated annually. We also have a provision in here that we have, by standard, in January, we update all of our fees based on the CPIU. So our fee schedule changes in January, so that may fall in line with when your park fee changes as well.
Hopefully, I wanted to talk to Dan to see where we are in that study, but it might not be until March or something, so.
But we have an obligation to complete this one and post it now. And if there's changes to the fees at a later date, we'll reconcile the process in order to incorporate them.
Okay, so we don't have to wait for another year, I guess is.
I can't be certain of that, but I know that we have to adopt this one and put it on the books at this point.
That's all I was just concerned, because I know we really worked hard to get this study done.
Right.
We're pretty low on our park fees with respect to our neighbors, so. Okay, thank you.
This is what we commonly refer to as an unfunded mandate, where we have no choice. This is something we have to do. And I know Rodney and his department invested many hours putting this report together, which, they did a fine job, but the point is it really, they have plenty of other things they could be doing besides generating new reports for the state of Wisconsin. So I'm going to express my displeasure when I'm, talking to the rest of the leaders on our League of Municipality Advocacy team, because, if they want us to prepare documents like this, they really should give us some wiggle room on our levy limits so we can pay people to do this or contract it out and know we have the money to pay the bill, because, it's just one more thing that we have to do. So, but otherwise, the information's there and it'll be updated annually unless they change the law again. Any other questions or comments? I'll get off my soapbox. Go ahead.
I noticed that cherished trees are on there, and at a cost of $300. It doesn't say anything in terms of how many have to be on a property per foot. Maybe it's not relevant to this particular document, but anybody know?
There is a schedule for that. I believe it's every 100 feet, but our forester actually deals with that on a case-specific location, because there might be utilities in the way, a street light or something, so they reposition them. But I believe it's based on the terrace width as well as the frontage on each property.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Alderperson Hirsch.
I was just curious, I know it says that these fees are updated annually, but Rodney, have you gone through each of these fees to make sure that we're in line with other municipalities and that we're,
Matt's wanting to interject something here, apparently.
I sense there's some confusion about what this report reflects. This is just reporting the fees that have already been approved and are being charged by the city in 2019. The purpose of this isn't to decide what the fees will be.
Well, I know, but I'm just asking a general question as to whether or not for the next time, if we look at our fees annually to make sure that we are in line with other municipalities, that we're not on the lower end or the higher end, that we are, if somebody looks at our community to want to develop here, they don't think our fees are outrageous or they think that we're too low. I just want to know if we have a system that we actually are making sure that our fees are, where we want them to be.
Okay. I think Rodney can answer that.
The answer is we do. We look at them annually.
Okay.
And actually, the council has reenacted this schedule. I believe it was last January that we actually looked at them. But we do take a look. But your fees have to also be commensurate with the services being provided.
Right.
Just because they're not comparable to the adjacent town, they might have a different system for charging a fee. We believe that the fee structure right now is appropriate for these fees.
I just didn't know how many
Annually.
years have passed, and I just want to make sure that we are up so we're not taking a hit on some of the because I know a lot of your time
Yep.
is involved. Thank you.
You're welcome.
President Lasky?
This is more curiosity. So what are the penalties if we don't pass this?
You can't charge the fees.
All right.
That was a
Could be
short
pretty
answer.
stiff.
Even for you.
Any fee that you do not list, you cannot charge.
Yeah.
So if we create a new fee?
If you create it next year, you'd have to include it on the
If we
next
create
year's
it this
report.
year? After the report's done and this year we create a fee?
We have to amend our report, probably before, yeah.
Just
Yeah.
curious.
Always looking for an angle, aren't you?
No.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. All right, any others? Otherwise, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. Resolution R-185 is coming from Utilities, Alderperson Hirsch.
Sure. This is Resolution 185, 2019, authorizing and directing the proper city officials to approve change order number 3 to the 2019 street and utility construction project, and I so move.
I'll second.
Second by Alderperson Jensen. Alderperson Hirsch?
I think because Jill has been so patiently waiting, she wants to say something tonight. I'm going to let her take this on.
Okay, very good, thank you. This actually, this change order is related to a water main break that was occurred on September 29th. That was a Sunday. We actually able to isolate that section of Main, and then the location actually was on Main Street in Harrison, in the center of basically an active construction zone. So we worked with Advanced Construction and Payne and Dolan to do traffic control, repair that water main break, and then to do the paving and the restoration work.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. Next item, R-186 is coming from Finance. Alderperson Schumacher.
R-186, 2019, approving the City of Stoughton post-issuance compliance policies and procedures. So moved.
Second.
Second by Alderperson Jensen. Alderperson Schumacher.
So we approved this one on a 5-0 vote, the last meeting, November 12th. This is to be in compliance with state and federal changes, and it makes it that we're comparative to other communities' practices.
Okay, anything you want to add, Jamin?
No, it's just a bit of a formality. These are practices we're following already. But the rating agencies and bond agencies look at these, so we just wanted to formalize it.
Okay, questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Item 17 also comes from Finance. Alderperson Schumacher.
R-187, 2019, authorizing and directing the proper city officials to utilize excess funds in the 2019 capital outlay budget not to exceed $7,000 for a new lighted crosswalk at the intersection of Grieg and North Page. So moved.
Second.
Second by Alderperson Jensen. Alderperson Schumacher.
So again, that one had come in on a unanimous vote, and this is just using up the excess to fund this lighted crosswalk, similar to the one that's up further on, or closer to Main Street on North Page. This one would also, I believe, Chief, this one would supplant having the crossing guard there, or look to help that situation out where the crossing guards are difficult to maintain an employed position.
Correct. This came actually through public safety with a recommendation because we had a request to provide a crossing guard at Lincoln and Roby Road. We did some numbers, and quite honestly, the intersection North Page and Gregg, where we currently have a crossing guard, had about a third of the numbers that the Lincoln and Roby intersection had. And it's very tough for the police department to recruit crossing guards. We have absolutely no subs, and to add a fifth location in the city would be very difficult for us to maintain. And so what we proposed is, because it's just the traffic on North Page that really needs to pay attention to the crossing, that we thought the lighted crosswalk would serve the purpose and allow kids to cross using the lighted crosswalk, and then we'd move the crossing guard to Lincoln and Roby Road, where it's much busier.
Anything you want to add, Greg?
Nope, you covered it all.
I did.
Uh,
Mayor? Question is to why, we just went through, are going through the budget. We haven't even approved it yet. And this is coming up as a extra to use up part of the budget. Why wasn't this part of the discussion earlier when we were discussing budgetary items?
Well, one, this request didn't come in until after the budget prep was done, and this is using 19 funds and not 20, 19, 20,
That's
19.
fine, but it's still,
Yeah, the request didn't come to public safety, and I think it was at our October meeting, and that was one of the alternatives that came out of that meeting was the proposal of the flashing light in lieu of having the fifth crossing guard. So that's why it did not come
I
up.
think we're going to try to get it installed ASAP, weather permitting.
Correct.
all right, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. R 188 comes from Public Works, Alderperson Bartlett.
Resolution 188 of 2019, requesting Wisconsin Department of Transportation consider improving access to the Stoughton Wellness Center, 2300 U.S. Highway 51, 138, as part of the project to install roundabouts on U.S. Highway 51 at Hole and Silverado, State Highway 138, and Roby Road, scheduled to be constructed in 2021. I move to approve.
Second.
Second by Alderperson Reeves, Alderperson Bartlett.
As Mr. Bear stated earlier, he is the new owner of the SWAC building and is looking at, really concerned about the new roundabouts are going to impact the use of that building. It's also going to divert a large amount of traffic onto Jackson Street and Silverado, where there are a lot of apartments. There's some elderly housing, a lot of kids' apartments. There's daycare coming off there on the north side of the wellness center as well. So just asking the DOT to reconsider this and look at other safety options. Your packet has another option that had access off 51, and I don't know, I don't remember seeing that during the first discussion. I don't know why that didn't come up. I assumed at that time, I remember discussing the access issues when this came before us, and I don't remember 51 access being something we consider as being allowed. I think, in my opinion, I didn't think the state would allow it, so I don't think we looked at that at all. So I just recommend asking the state to take another look at it and see what they could do.
Alderperson Reeves.
I think the other thing we talked about at Public Works was that, and Mayor Swadley or Rodney, correct me if I'm wrong, but when they did their traffic study, I don't know that they were there on the weekend when they saw, so they didn't see the number of cars that come in for those tournaments. And so that's one of the reasons we thought that they really should take another look with all the data, including the surrounding homes and the traffic.
Alderperson Hirsch.
Yeah, I remember talking to DOT 2 years ago when they proposed this and the problems it was going to have with SWAC, and we were talking about what they're proposing with the right-in, right-out. With what they have into that frontage road, that's, people aren't going to go all the way up to Jackson. What they're going to do is they're going to go into the Silverado, they're going to make a U-turn and come out and then do the right-in. It's going to create a nightmare for that business. It's going to be an unsafe kind of situation because people aren't going to drive a mile out of the way to get onto that frontage road. I mean, that's just not human behavior. So I really, really encourage the DOT to figure out a better, safer alternative, whether they buy land further up that's some space between the wellness center and the Stoughton Hospital and SWAC. There's that strip of land that you can put another driveway in or something that is a little bit safer option, or off of 51. But this is going to hurt businesses, and it's going to create another kind of dangerous public safety issue. So I really support that the DOT needs to get back to the drawing board to come up with a better solution.
Alderperson Boersma?
We had extensive discussion about this at Public Works just on the 21st. And my concern at that point was also how we would get this information to the Department of Transportation, because simply sending them a letter, if this passes, saying that we want it relooked at, might be problematic. You know, I hate to see it get thrown in a wastepaper basket sometime. So I think we're really serious about this, and whoever makes the contact with the Department of Transportation, I think we were unanimous, actually. We don't have the number of people voting listed on this under 18, but it was unanimous. We were all concerned. We had a presentation by both the previous owner and the current owner of the SWAC about, and so I think we're really serious about this. We really would want the department to really consider this very carefully and come back and make some changes on this. They're all really legitimate changes as far as I'm concerned. I just don't want to be minimized.
Sure. I've offered to host a meeting with the DOT and with the new owner of the SWAC. Hopefully the DOT will take us up on it so we can sit down and reiterate our concerns and the concerns that they have as well. At the end of the day, it's a DOT decision. It's not a city decision, but certainly us going on record, helps the cause. So I think that's what the intent is here. Alderperson Schumacher.
Is this the drawing that the new owner provided, or is this an older drawing from somewhere?
The DOT actually provided this. They're the ones that created this, and
Okay.
I think didn't proceed with it for whatever reason, but this is the one that was presented at Public Works last week.
I just wondered if the new owner had considered if they do remove that pavement on there. I know that in larger events, they're usually parked all along that entire driveway in there, if they've addressed that sort of situation with their parking lot as well. I know they're kind of grossly underrepresented for parking, not that we want to add more impervious structure, but it gets to be kind of a nightmare to drive over there with large events.
It does. I mean, it's a good problem to have. I mean, it means there's a lot of people coming to our community, especially from other communities, but it does also create some concerns. Any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor of the resolution say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. All right, I think we just have the two items left. R-176 of 2019. This one came through Finance Committee earlier this evening. We do have an opportunity to go into closed session. I'm not so sure if we need to or not. I guess, Brett, you can introduce it and see where it goes. Attorney Dragney did some work, so he'll have some comments.
All right, let me get that here. R-176, 2019, approving the real estate purchase and sale agreement by and between American Beauty Investments, LLC, and the City of Stoughton, Wisconsin, for the property located at 421 Glacier Moraine Drive. So moved.
Second.
Second by Alderperson Jensen. Alderperson Schumacher.
This one looked over the purchase agreement between the two parties, and we'd seen purchase agreement prior to, and then Attorney Dragney added in some more specific language into it. And other than a few issues that we worked our way through during Finance Committee, just pointed a few things out, but there were no material things that needed to be changed, so we recommended this to proceed.
And I believe the Attorney Dragney's language came out in a separate email, didn't it? In case anyone's looking for it. Anything you want to walk us through, Matt? Or, I mean, at Finance, we kind of said we'd like to move forward with the offer to purchase, understanding that maybe the dates and some minor tweaks here and there, but nothing substantial. I don't know how you feel about that. Because obviously we need to present it to them, and we don't want to go back and forth multiple times unless that's necessary.
That Holly sent out.
But I think we have everything addressed, don't we?
Well, we did share at least conceptually the outline of the agreement with the buyer's broker. We did get some feedback, so there may be some additional requests for revisions here, I don't know. So it seems to me that the council could either approve this agreement or approve this agreement and delegate authority to someone to approve changes that might be made in further negotiations.
You got Alderperson Borsma?
Matt, could you just tell us whether or not time is of the essence on this one? Do we need to act on it really quickly?
Somebody else might be in a better position to answer that.
Go ahead, Rodney.
I certainly think they're interested in firming up whether this property is going to be theirs to build on. Their designers are working on their building plans, and they'd really like to know that this is going to be secured for them.
Yeah, we're in the process of prepping the site in anticipation. The plan came through the Plan Commission, and, you know, everything seemed to go well there. So really, what we just need to do is you know, get something approved here so we can close the deal and they can get built. They'd like to be putting up a building May 1st, I think it is, and we want to help them achieve their timeline. Alderperson Hirsch?
So was their purchase price what, the going rate for that area? That, I mean, we didn't, I mean, I don't want to say it up. I don't know if we can talk about prices at.
It's consistent with what we've been selling the lots for.
Okay, that's the,
Is
thank
that-
you.
Okay.
And I have a question of,
Sure.
you know, under, I don't know if I can find it now, where they have to get over almost close to $2 million in, what was that? The financing contingency, what's that?
That's with them and their bank for the land acquisition and the building.
Okay, so it concludes the building, okay.
Yeah, and then Jamin ran some numbers to make sure that the increment that's going to be generated, since it's in the TIF district, is going to really satisfy our goals, I guess is the easiest way to put it. I don't know if you want to expand on that.
Yeah, we sent some of this information over to Accurate Appraisal, actually, and they did give us an estimate. They're actually estimating it's going to appraise more than what we were forecasting. So in terms of value per acre, it's in line with what we need out there.
Okay, excellent. Now, they pay us the full amount up front, right? And then they get a mortgage for the other part?
Right.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
So they'll pay the full purchase price at closing.
Okay.
About $125,000 of that will be placed in escrow, which they'll get back as a credit, but only if they complete the building and get an occupancy permit by the deadline specified in the agreement.
So wait, 125, so if they're only paying X amount and then they get 125 back?
They're going to pay $140,000 at closing. They would get $125,000 of that back.
So they really
So
get
they're
a
paying,
deal.
they're getting the land for $15,000.
All right.
That was in lieu of a TIF request, basically. So we felt that in order to keep our land values solidified as people look at properties, we would negotiate a credit only if the building goes up.
Wow.
Which is pretty standard, especially in Dane County.
Okay. I mean, I'm just wondering, when you give such a tax break, how are we paying back the TIF?
Through the building that goes up, and then their equipment that they're putting in the building, and that's what Accurate appraised
Okay.
for us.
All right.
Alderperson Borsma, and then Riley.
Yeah, I'm under the assumption that the person who delegates the responsibility to tweak the contract would be Matt. Is that correct?
Well, what I would recommend is that if you want to delegate authority, I mean, I'll do the legal work on it, but if you want to delegate authority to someone to decide whether to approve changes, that should be to someone other than me. Could be the mayor.
And that might be Jamin?
Well, you'll have to decide who to
It's up to you.
delegate authority to.
I don't have a preference. It's up to you guys.
Would you be willing to, Mayor?
Certainly.
Okay, so I present an amendment to this resolution. The amendment would be to authorize that Mayor Swadley be able to negotiate the final terms of the contract.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderperson Riley. Anything you want to add, Sid? Otherwise, Alderperson Riley's on deck.
I think that's an adequate motion as I didn't write it down, but I think just authorizing you to sort of tweak it. If there's major changes, I said minor because I would like to say minor because I think if it's anything major, it should come back to council, but I'm satisfied with your ability to make the decision for us.
Okay.
Well, I would suggest that you either delegate authority to the mayor to approve changes or not, because once you add the word minor, you're creating uncertainty over what he's allowed to approve or not approve.
It's all relative, so I'll modify it to say approve changes to the contract.
Okay. You all right with that? Okay.
I already said that, I think.
All right. Alderperson Riley?
Changes? Yes, there were a number of dates by which the city had to complete several things here or else be in default of this purchase contract, as I recall, with respect to grading and other things. I guess I would ask Rodney, is there any concern with regard to the city's ability to comply with those deadlines?
We're on schedule to meet those deadlines, and we've been working with the applicant or the buyer, so they're familiar with the status of the project. I think we should have no problems meeting those deadlines.
Thank you. And then if there were necessary changes, would the mayor still have an ability to make those? In other words, in consultation, Rodney, with you and others as necessary if we're seeing problems, force majeure, whatever they may be?
We'd certainly be in conversations about that.
Groovy. Thank you.
Alderperson Hirsch?
Just one question I'm trying to look through here, but does it say anywhere in this document that the buyer has to put up a building of X value to get back the $125,000, and so that we make sure that we're actually making the right amount of money, that they don't put up something smaller or doesn't have as much assessed value?
Yeah, so the way that was approached was to require, if you look in the definitions, project is defined as an approximately 26,100 square foot facility for use in the buyer's business operations. We chose not to put a dollar figure on that because it's not really feasible for us to administratively establish the value of that building outside the assessment process. So what we chose to do was contact the city's assessor to get the assessor's opinion as to the value of this project, what it is projected to value at. And as Jamin said, the assessor came back with a number that exceeded the value that we thought was necessary to generate the revenue needed.
And the materials and design went through the planning commission, so they have to be consistent with what they presented to us.
We wanted to get away from a value guarantee because then that presents its own complications. So the alternative to a value guarantee was to say you have to complete a building having this, of this size by this date.
Yeah, but it could be I know it has to go through planning, because I know we put in other documents that it has to have at least X taxable value. I mean, we were doing this in RDA where the builder has to do X amount, so we make sure that we have that tax base. By just saying you have to put up a building, because it's not defined here, I'm kind of a little
Well, there is a building
leery.
plan as part of the offer.
Right, is the plan really associated with, I mean, is it, I mean, I'm just making sure that we are astute and not later on going, oh crap, we didn't see this loophole. And now we have a building that isn't worth as much, yet they're still eligible for the $125,000 rebate, and we don't have enough money to pay off the TIF.
So when the buyer made its initial offer, it included a provision, although not really very well developed, indicating that it would construct a building valued at $1.5 million. And so we considered further developing a value guarantee as a way of addressing that issue, which would then potentially be secured by a letter of credit. We discussed at a staff level that approach, and then we also discussed this as an alternative, which we thought would be simpler and maybe less expensive and complicated for the buyer to deal with. And this was the alternative we landed on at a staff level. If the council is unsatisfied with this approach, we can certainly go back and say, no, we want a different approach. But the comfort level that we had at the staff level came through verifying with the assessor that a building of this size would assess at the value that was projected to be needed.
Right. And it's not a case where we're going to have to wait for them to add on to the building to get the value, and that's what has kind of gotten us in a pinch in the past. This will be the size of the building, and it's right in the document.
But if they come back to change that building, does that null and void this whole agreement?
Yes.
Well, they wouldn't be if they come in and say, I want to build a smaller, they want to build a smaller building, for example, they would.
Or a building that doesn't have as many amenities and therefore the value goes down.
We don't have amenities built into this agreement, so
I know, but you have a assessed value based on what.
Well, so let me ask this. What kind of building characteristics did we give to the assessor when describing this building?
We gave him all the information that was in the planning commission and then some other information that we had in terms of, not what would I call personal property, but in terms of some of the equipment that would actually be in there attached to the building.
So if the council would like us to tweak the agreement to include as an exhibit those materials and say not only does it have to be this size, but it has to be consistent with those plans and that equipment, we can add that.
I think I'd be more comfortable with that added, just so later on, if they decide, oh, we're not going to move this equipment to this building, we're going to leave it in our old building, or we're going to not buy it or whatever, then we don't get that full assessed value.
And we can do that, right? We have all the information, right?
Yeah, and I think in terms of the equipment that we really cared about is the coolers, and those are attached. They're actually selling those with their old building, and these would be new coolers as part of the new building, so.
I just need to make sure, Rodney, do we have adequate description of these new coolers that we don't? But we could require it. We could say, if you want this agreement, we need that, if that's the council's desire.
Alderperson Boersma?
I just want to emphasize that I think my amendment would cover that Tim would be able to do those kind of tweaks to this agreement.
Yes, so do I have to make a motion to?
If you want to require that that be included, then you need to make a motion.
We have a motion and an amendment on the floor.
Okay, so
should we?
Why don't we deal with the first amendment, and then we can have another amendment?
Well, I'd like to withdraw my amendment and restate the amendment, which would be that we as a council authorize our mayor, Tim Swadley, to make final adjustments to this contract to include that the size of the building and the structure that meets with the approval of, that would meet with the approval of council.
That's already in there.
The size of the building's in there. What is it that you're looking for,
Well, it's
Regina?
the other assessed value, the coolers and other equipment that is stated in there. Materials.
Size of materials, then it would be fine. So Holly, do you have enough that you could, or maybe Matt could help you?
I can help you with the motion. I think it's to authorize, to approve the agreement and authorize the mayor to negotiate further changes to the agreement, but to require that the final agreement include a requirement that the building have the characteristics that were included in the Planning Commission packet, and that the building include the coolers that were anticipated.
And other equipment.
And other equipment that were
Much
anticipated in
better.
developing the
So that would be
value.
that would be my motion of Holly.
And all that,
At a minimum?
What's that?
At a minimum?
At a minimum.
That's fine.
I usually don't have that kind of ability to put all those things together.
Okay, so you withdrew your first one. This is a second, a new amendment.
Point of order. Does the withdrawal need to have the second's approval?
Technically?
Yes.
Technically, not only that, but you can't even withdraw a motion because it belongs to the council. But
What I
I'm going to
thought.
say if the movement is willing to withdraw and the second says fine, and the rest of you are all okay with that, I would say fine.
Jim, are you okay with it?
You
with
seconded it.
With the withdrawal? Mr. Riley? Are you okay?
Apologize.
Are you okay with the withdrawal of the?
I think it was
Oh, yeah.
Lisa.
Am I the only one who
So-
has to be okay with it? I didn't say anything
Yeah,
about
because
this
you
at all.
seconded it. You seconded it.
I think Lisa seconded it.
Oh, Lisa
Oh,
did?
yeah.
I had that Riley seconded it.
Yeah.
Oh, it
Okay.
was me?
Yeah.
You don't even know what you.
I'm okay with it.
The First Amendment.
Okay, so we,
But we don't have a second on the Second Amendment.
Okay. So we have a new amendment,
I'll second it.
there you go.
and Regina's going to second it.
Alderperson Hurst, do you think that what I said captured your intent?
Well, there was a lot there, so
We hope so.
well.
I think we
there's-
get the gist of it.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that
I understand what
what
you're
they
saying.
get, their assessed value is actually going to be what the assessed value should be, so we don't lose money on the deal.
So I understand your intent to be to make sure that the information we provided to the assessor that was used to develop a value guarantee, that we require in the agreement, that they meet that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I don't think that'll be an issue
Yeah.
for them. I really don't, because they're going to move their business there. They're going to need the equipment, so,
Well, I know, but you know,
And the
things
materials.
change,
And the materials.
you know,
right.
things change, businesses change their minds, and all of a sudden values go down. I just want to make sure that the city is covered. If we're giving them such a great deal, that we make sure that we get our deal in the back.
Okay. Any more discussion on the amendment?
Holly, can you read it one more time?
Sure.
The motion was to authorize Mayor Swadley to be able to negotiate changes to the agreement and to require that the final agreement include the characteristics that were included in the Planning Commission packet, and to require the inclusion of the coolers and other equipment at minimum.
Well captured.
Could it be characteristics? Did you just have that singular?
It's plural.
All right, thank you, sorry.
All right, any more on the amendment? Going once, twice, all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. So that takes us back to the original motion as amended. Any discussion on that? Alderperson Hiley.
Just one thing jumped out to me in the agreement, that the city address on page 8 lists the Opera House building still.
Uh-oh.
where the heck is that? Let's see here. Oh, that's the old City Hall, huh?
Yeah, you can't get anything
Holy
past Ben.
cow.
You should know better to even try.
All right, we'll have to fix that.
If
All
we're
right.
doing that right now, my middle initial is T as well, not I.
It's really not the Opera House anyway, so
It's a municipal building, isn't it?
it is.
I'm sure we would get the mail, but
Okay,
Like
any
Jamin
other,
T. Friedel.
any other tweaks? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. Item number 6, discussion and possible action regarding the Finance Committee recommendation on KPW Phase 2 TIF application. Alderperson Schumacher.
We don't have, do we need to reiterate the
Where's the
resolution, or?
Resolution's in
Move
the
to
packet.
approve. Yeah, you can just,
Not in the packet.
Nope, I don't see the or the.
oh, yeah, I don't think there's a resolution in there. So basically, the motion would be, did you have some language written for that?
I did, I sent out an email. Do you want me to just read it?
Sure.
Brett can say if he agrees or not?
Yeah.
Okay. Recommendation of the Finance Committee is to direct the appropriate city officials to begin working with the developer on an agreement to undertake development, incorporating the main elements as presented at the September 17th, 2019 Finance Committee meeting.
All right, does that sound
Yes, I'll
good?
agree with that. I was looking back at where I even had my notes on that. Yeah, I don't have anything other to add on that.
So you want to make that
Initial
motion?
resolution, I'll make that motion then.
Could you read that motion again?
All right. Jamin will read it again. The second was by Jensen.
Okay, recommendation of the Finance Committee is to direct the appropriate city officials to begin working with the developer on an agreement to undertake development, incorporating the main elements as presented at the September 17th, 2019 Finance Committee meeting.
All right, so we have a motion by Schumacher, a second by Jensen. Anything else, Alderperson Schumacher? I have
We've talked
Alderperson
about
Riley
July.
wants to be first, huh?
Thank you. I haven't the slightest idea what that means, I'll be honest, not having been present for that meeting, so I would love to have some more definition if possible, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, Jamin, but honestly, that's the most nebulous thing I've ever heard in my life, because I don't know what was discussed.
Speak and you shall receive.
All right.
Like, what are the main
Good.
elements and what are we actually working on?
Same information that was presented at the September 24th City Council meeting.
And if you recall, may I?
Yeah, he'll walk
I'm
you
sorry,
through it.
okay, good, thank you.
And it,
Here it is, summary of main elements.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow,
Here
look at that.
So here was the PowerPoint that we walked through. The actual document that we worked through at the September 17th Finance Committee meeting was this attachment. It's in the packet. So I think all this information was presented at the September 24th meeting as well.
so basically what we said is if the council chose to go forward, here's kind of how we thought it should look. And what we're asking for tonight is whether or not you want to go forward with it, and if you do, then the attorneys would get together and start drafting a developers agreement, would ultimately would come back to the council for approval. It was part of the process, so this wouldn't be the last kick at the can, but certainly this would be a major step forward, or possibly the end of this discussion.
And these were what we ultimately decided on to have the TIF listening sessions, correct, from that meeting?
Right, and Gene can certainly give us an update on the listening sessions, because the last time it was at council, the direction was to have the listening sessions, which we completed, so now we're back with the proposal as well as the feedback from the listening sessions. What do you want to do first? You want to walk through this, or you want to go through the listening session stuff?
Talking to me?
Yeah.
Well, the document I just handed out is basically it's a response from Kettle Park West LLC in terms of what was presented at the September 17th meeting, and then again on the 24th at council. And then the right-hand column has their responses. So this could guide the discussion as well, so it might be quicker and easier to talk about potentially the listening sessions and what fell out of those, and then move into this document, because this might be the piece that we end up going into closed session for.
Okay.
I agree.
So Gene, would you like to give us an update?
Sure, I emailed out just an overview and invite alders, many alders attended, and so thank you very much. Feel free to add any pertinent points or what was meaningful for you through them. But there were 18 constituents that attended over the 3 different sessions. I had hoped that maybe we'd get 25, but the numbers, I think, were indicative of the concerns that I had initially brought forth of saying, wow, in 2015, this was a red hot button issue. And it doesn't appear that our community is so divided and so political on this issue anymore. I don't know what people gained after sitting and listening and hearing and asking questions as well as answering them, but the themes were pretty clear. We need more residential development. At what cost is the question that comes forward. There were lots of advocate from the school side of things saying that they are hoping that we will help bring more students in for our challenged but talented school system with their current ratings. And they want to see that grow. And so just some of the takeaways that I had, because I've already sent you the basic summary and the issues and the kinds of things that came up, but it didn't have the vehemence that it had in the past. That I believe that fact that we had very few numbers of individuals really coming in and expressing a lot, I think they're entrusting us to make a good decision based upon this very complex issue. And so at these meetings, I think some constituents expressed what it is that they want you to do, or what it is that their thoughts are regarding it, and they were on both sides of the aisle. Both sides of going forward, or should TIF really be used for, were the basics on that. I guess I'm willing to say I think truly trying to create an area, an atmosphere where people could come together and talk and question and be with the issue was extremely helpful for me, because by the end of it, I think all of my worries and my questions and the complexity of it, of course, it's still there, but I felt I had a handle and how I should vote, and didn't have the need to go further, but encouraged any kind of feedback. I'm curious what kind of feedback you may have received as a result of or in addition to the listening sessions. But I guess that's all I want to say on them.
And before we open it up, I just want to thank Jean for the outstanding job that she did facilitating. I thought you were very fair and really concerned, genuinely concerned about getting the feedback, and I think the people that attended the meetings were pretty impressed by the way you conducted them.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Any questions or comments or thoughts or?
With respect to this, no, other than to second what the mayor just said about Jean's efforts, thank you. If I may, I'm just curious, again, with respect to the motion that's on the floor, if we vote in the affirmative on this, are we saying that we support the 6.8 million TIF request, or are we merely saying talk some more? I'm not certain what we're voting on. I sure want to know. Thank you.
So my understanding of the motion is that you would be directing staff and me to prepare an agreement that is consistent with the summary of main elements on this document that basically tracks with that. And so we would prepare such an agreement and bring it back to the council. I think it's worth noting that we already know that the developer had an opportunity to see that summary of main elements and has pushed back on some of those things, so you can see the developer's response. So I'm not sure how the process would play out from here, but what I would be looking for from the council is, do you want me to start working on an agreement? And if so, do you want me to do that based on this summary of main elements? Do you want me to do that based on this summary of main elements with any adjustments in any way? And if so, what are those adjustments?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to be clear, too, as I look at this, I see one point, council, where they advise as to, I think, the $3 million ask on PAYGO. I don't see anything referencing the other 3.8 million that we would be ultimately, as I understand, offering through PAYGO again, but the other 3.8 million that the city would in essence be getting back to the developer to ensure some profit margin. I guess that's where I'm still somewhat confused, and I apologize.
We referenced the projects within the main elements, so those costs are just estimates at this point in time. It'd be actual costs for those projects, which again, they would come back through the process in terms of what the project's going to be and how much it's ultimately going to cost. But as of right now, we would agree to doing the projects.
I apologize, Jim. So we've been working, as I understand, from projected figures that the city would be kicking in again from the PAYGO of approximately 6.8 million, correct?
Yes.
And are you telling me that that's not a very solid figure, that it could be much more or much less, or what are you telling me?
It's the off-site projects that the estimates could change, the scope of the projects could change at this point. The 3 million is firm in terms of the MRO amount for the PAYGO. But the projects, again, are out 3, 4, 5, 6 years at this point in time. So we could set a limit, but it's probably going to change at this point, because again, they're just estimates. The way the agreement would be drafted is we'll do these projects when the money's available to do them.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Other person, Legaki?
Specific to that, Jamin, was it true that the numbers are estimated now in these dollars, and that they could rise? And I remember hearing a range. By no means is this meant for documentation, but a range of anywhere to up to 9 or even 11 million.
Was that my range?
I remember it at a council meeting after one of our presentations, but I cannot recall a date.
Yeah.
Just wondering if that
I don't know.
potential
I
range
think-
of cost is clear.
I don't know where that range is from. I know initially, a couple of years ago, when they made a request, the request was 5 million, and then the total number was up to 11 million. So that's the only thing I can think of that you might, be commingling,
Yep.
which is possible, because it is complicated, and there are a lot of different numbers floating around. But really, this request is for the 3 million, and then as they hit the benchmarks and the money is generated for the rest, they would, upon our approval, continue to move forward, is the way I understand it.
Thank you.
Alderperson Riley?
Sorry, thank you. So this vote, again, this would be an approval of the 3 million, or would it would be an approval of the 3
It
million?
would be approving the 3 million,
Right.
and then in terms of the main elements, the timing of those off-site projects, which is the other 3.8 million. But again, we would draft the language so these projects would only move forward when there's enough money within the TIF to do the projects. If for some reason it's not there and they need to stop developing, we have set marks where they would need to stop developing until we have enough money to do the off-site improvements, then they can continue to develop.
Thank you.
Alderperson Hirsch?
Jamin, were you planning on going through this with us so that we can, because this is something that I'd like to have time to consider, or if you present it, then we can talk about it and think about it, because right now it's,
I think the left-hand column we've already presented.
right, but we haven't had time to even digest the right hand and to make a decision based on, again, something that's just given to us at 8:30.
Do you want to postpone until?
This was in the packet, though, as well, so.
Yeah, I don't understand why you're not prepared to take action. We've been talking about this.
Did I say that?
Yes, I think you did.
No, I said, can we go through this so everybody's on the same page? It's on the packet, but some things are not that clear or understandable. I have no idea what a look-back provision is. I'd like some clarification. That's not, I'm not a developer. I'd like, it's a big decision here. And you guys
We can certainly walk through. If
Yeah,
you
we
have
can walk through them point by point.
Specific questions, we'll be glad to answer them.
Let's do that.
You want to walk through?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, so we're just walking through the document, the Kettle Park West. Matt, at any point in time that you think we need to go in closed session, because I know this is probably part of the negotiation piece, just feel free to let us know. So the first section that we went through in terms of the main elements are the developer obligations. You can see here 1A, to construct the on-site projects. Kettle Park West agrees to those. 1B includes all required grading, sanitary, water, storm, landscaping, etc. Again, this is all on-site. Developer obligations, KPW agrees with that as well. Item C, agree to a look-back provision in the final development agreement. Additional detail would be provided in the final development agreement. Basically what a look-back provision is, so right now they're anticipating, when I say they're, Kettle Park West LLC is anticipating about 12.5% rate of return on this project. We can build into the agreement what's called a look-back provision, where we would give them a little cushion. Maybe we say if you earn over 14, 15%, whatever that number is, we get to go back and look at it. Probably would be an independent third party looking at it as maybe not an audit, but a compilation or something like that, where they would provide some sort of an opinion, I'm assuming. And if they earn over the set mark that we say, let's, for argument's sake, say 15%, then we would be able to get some of our investment back. Does that make sense?
I'll just provide a little more detail on
Okay.
what I expect that would look like. So as you know, the city retained an outside financial consultant, Ellers, to do an analysis of the TIF request. So what I would anticipate doing is taking their work product and making it an exhibit to the agreement and saying, when the city analyzed the project, this was what the project was projected to generate in terms of a rate of return based on these projected costs and these projected revenues. And so the look back would then say we'd have to pick either one or more points in time in the future where the developer would be required to provide their actual information that would be compared to the projected information. And then again, if the project is more profitable than projected by whatever amount we established in the agreement, that would have the effect of reducing the TIF funds that are made available to the project. As you can see, the developer's response to that was if a look-back provision is included, then they would want it to be a two-way look-back so that they could get even more TIF money if the project turns out to be less profitable than what was projected. So that was their response to that. So that's where we are on that.
And that recommendation was put in as a result of discussion at the Finance Committee. I think Alderperson Reeves had requested that to be included into
The dual look back or just the single?
No, we're on the left-hand side. Their response is on the right-hand side.
Right.
And that would be something that if we wanted to entertain that, I don't know if we would do that in open session or not, but.
I think at this point, what's helpful to do in open session is just provide basic information. I think if the council then wants to start having a discussion about how it wants to proceed with negotiation, then we should move into closed session.
Any questions about what the look back means?
No, thank you,
Okay.
that was great.
All right, you can continue then.
Okay, and then the next piece is the city just outlining how we think the tax increment should be allocated. So obviously the first piece would be to pay the administrative costs for the city. Work our way down here. Second would be to pay the annual debt service on city borrowing related to Phase 1 Commercial Center. Third would be pay any annual debt service on city borrowing related to Phase 2 residential development. That is on the off chance the city would have to borrow money to complete the Oak Opening, Deer Point Drive, which is unlikely at this point, but we did want to build it in there just in case. Fourth would be to pay the municipal revenue obligation, or the MRO. That's the $3 million that we were talking about earlier. Fifth would be to pay for the off-site infrastructures related to the Jackson Street Force Main and then the water main extension to Highway 138. So those are the three off-site projects that we were talking about. So you have Oak Opening, Deer Point Drive, the Jackson Street Force Main, and then the Highway 138 water main extension.
So what's the MRO again?
That's the municipal revenue obligation. That's the $3 million to fund some of the on-site costs for the developer.
Okay, so that's the on-site
Yes.
TIF, okay.
Any other questions about that section? Okay.
I'll just, if I could,
Sure.
Mayor. So the intent behind that methodology in terms of how increment is allocated, that's one element of risk management. So we're trying to set it up to make sure that as money comes in, things are paid in a way that protects the city's ability to make sure that it can pay any debt service it has to pay before it would make funds available to the developer.
So wouldn't, and I guess maybe some of these questions are better for when we go into closed
be.
session. Okay.
Yeah, just take note and we'll come back to them.
Okay, so item E, we require a guarantee that the city will receive sufficient actual tax increment to fund all of the costs associated with items 1 through 3 noted above, which would be the city administrative costs, the debt service on the commercial one, and then any debt service that we would take out for Phase 2, which again is unlikely at this point in time. And this guarantee would be secured by a letter of credit if needed. Any questions on that one? Okay, item F. So we did build into here, the developer will not be allowed to develop lands within the CSM adjacent to Highway 138 until the intersection at 138 has been completed. So again, that's just making sure we have sufficient funds within the TIF to fund the projects that we feel we need to do off-site. Again, if the revenue is not sufficient, we would basically freeze the development until enough revenue is there.
So what do you mean by adjacent to 138? Because there's a lot of that housing development that is concentrated. So where is your cutoff that when this would have to go through to 138?
It's a great question for Rodney.
The CSM,
Do you remember what that lot looks like next to the
18.
kettle down by 138?
Oh, that, just those little
That
orange?
one lot that's down
Okay.
kind of just north of 138 and next to the kettle? I think that's it. Is that?
Yeah, because I think in previous discussions, we had said that 138 extension had to go in far sooner than that little strip.
There we go. Okay, so.
And so section C, I thought anything south of Jackson would demarcate when that would have to go into 138 because of a public safety issue, and then what Alder Boersma keeps on saying, people want to get off to 138 because they're going to Oregon or 14, and there's no way to get there, you know, besides all being funneled through Jackson Street. And once you have that consolidated, well, but that's not a public right-of-way, that's a parking lot. Yeah, but that's not a residential, that's just ridiculous. Huh? I know, but that's not how a neighborhood should be developed.
You think emergency vehicles, that's a good way for them to go in an emergency? No, I'm not saying that. Do you think that's a good way for them to go?
That's up to them.
This is something that we discussed years ago, and we continue to discuss, that access to 138 needs to happen.
Right,
sooner
and
rather
I
than later.
reminded you when we did the presentation that in April, this council took action to basically defer that decision until later.
Okay, well, it's later.
It wasn't required in order to begin construction on the north addition.
I'm not saying that. I said it's when it goes south of Jackson. I'm not saying now. I'm saying when you go south of Jackson, when you have all that consolidated thing, you need to think about public safety.
Well, I think by then we'll have the connection on Roby and then also the connection going through on Jackson. So we'll already have two
Right,
access
anything
points.
south of Jackson, people are going to be wanting to go on 14 and 138.
Yes, they have to do all of the land to backfill through here so that they can make that connection. So it has to be made in that motion.
I'm not saying anything about delaying the northern part. That's what we talked about in April.
In order for them to do that, it's.
Point of order. You're not recognized right at the moment.
So what is the question, I guess, is what I'm trying to get to, or is this something we should discuss further in closed session?
I'll discuss in closed session,
All
that's
right,
fine.
that's fine.
I was just asking when that came in, because it wasn't clear on this.
Okay, point G, the city will not complete the off-site infrastructure costs associated with Jackson Street Force Main and Highway 138 Water Main Extension projects until sufficient unreserved fund balance within TIF number 7 exists. The developer will not be permitted to develop beyond point, and again, that point still needs to be defined. City obligations. So city obligations, construct off-site projects. One would be the Jackson Street Force Main, the other one would be the water main extension to Highway 138. Again, we would delay these off-site infrastructure projects until enough fund balance exists within TIF number 7 to do those projects. Again, item 2 here, developer would not be permitted to develop beyond point, which we'll define at a later date. Item B, issue an MRO to developer to finance on-site public improvements for $3 million. We would limit the interest rate to 6%. Some items that we need to determine, of course, would be the timing of release of the MRO, payment schedules, and then the city would only be required to pay on the MRO in amounts that can be paid with projected actual tax increment. So again, if the money's not there through the TIF, we wouldn't have to pay on the MRO. Any questions on the MRO piece? Okay. Item 3, off-site public improvements at city's discretion. Oak opening Deer Point Drive in the town of Rutland. We do have an agreement, or we would need to have an agreement between the city and the town of Rutland, which will define the scope and timing of this improvement. The development agreement will ensure sufficient tax increment is available to fund this project in its entirety, or in the off chance that we would have to borrow before this project needs to be done, we would require that the annual projected tax increment exceeds 125% of the projected debt service on all outstanding and any proposed city borrowing. Again, unlikely that borrowing would be needed for this project, but we did want to build it in here just in case. Item B, connection of Oak Opening Drive to Highway 138. Kettle Park West LLC will not be allowed to develop lands within the CSM adjacent to Highway 138, which we discussed. City will not consider commencing this work until sufficient unreserved fund balance exists within tip number 7 to complete the project. Scope of the improvement and timing of the improvement will be influenced by development to the south of Highway 138. Item number 4, conditions precedent to parties' obligations. Obviously execute this agreement, evaluate the need to amend the existing project plan for the TIF. Developer must acquire fee simple title to the property. A plat or CSMs must be approved. The lands needed for construction of the Jackson Street improvements must be dedicated to the city. Reach agreement with Town of Rutland related to Oak Opening and Deer Point Drive. And then we have some language down here in terms of timings to get all these conditions taken care of. So just a real quick risk assessment in terms of why we kind of created these main elements the way we did. The MRO is issued on a pay-go basis and poses no financial risk to the city. The developer would only get paid after the city's obligations are paid, and whatever money's left over, then we can start paying on the MRO. Allocation of annual actual tax increment is defined to ensure all city financial obligations are satisfied first. The city will require a guarantee that the city will receive sufficient actual tax increment to fund all the costs associated with any administrative costs, existing annual debt service, any associated annual debt service on city borrowing related to the Oak Opening Deer Point Drive if that does occur, and this guarantee would be secured by a letter of credit. City will not consider commencing work on the following off-site infrastructure projects until sufficient unreserved fund balance within the TIF is met. Again, we'll define the point at which they can develop to, and then they would have to stop until we have enough money to complete the Jackson Street force main and the Highway 138 water main extension. City would not consider commencing work on the following off-site infrastructure projects until sufficient unreserved fund balance within the TIF is available. Developer will not be allowed to develop lands within the CSM adjacent to Highway 138, and again, that's the connection of Oak Opening Drive to Highway 138. Again, if city borrowing is required to complete the Oak Opening Deer Point Drive project in the town of Rutland, the development agreement will ensure sufficient tax increment is available. We're limiting the interest payable on the MRO to 6%, and then we would incorporate the look-back provision into development agreement in relation to Phase 2.
Alderperson Riley.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for the sake of clarification, I'm quite sure I know what this is, but I'll ask anyway. The city is committing to covering the interest costs for the developer for the $3 million sum that's borrowed. We want a cap of 6% on that at most. Developer, at least right now, for sake of discussion, is not particularly interested in that cap, correct? So it's $3 million plus whatever interest they incur. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. So I guess, I mean, there's some different options here. You can accept it as recommended by the Finance Committee, which is, I believe, what the motion is, or you can consider some of the developers' responses. And if we did, you could either do that in open or closed session. What's your preference, Alderperson Hirsch?
I move to move into closed session so we can have a frank and open discussion about some of the developers' responses.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion to go into closed session? And I believe we have to do a roll call on closed
Do I have to
session.
read it, or do I have to?
If you could, I think that would be great.
Sure. The city council may convene in closed session per state statute 19.85, parent 1, parent E, for the purposes of deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business. Whenever competitive or bargaining reasons deem a closed session necessary. The city council may reconvene in open session to discuss and take action on a subject matter discussed in closed session.
And so that was a motion, and at least had the second, and we'll do a roll call vote.
Caravello,
Aye.
Doom,
Aye.
Hiley,
Aye.
Hirsch,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
Lagaki,
Aye.
Majewski,
Aye.
Reeves,
Aye.
Riley,
Aye.
Schumacher,
Aye.
Bartlett.
Aye.
That motion
All
carries.
right, would you like to take 5? Yes. Okay, we'll take 5, and then we'll come back in closed session.